Spanish is Ejército Zapatista de Liberación Nacional. Short, they just put EZLN. And it's an organization that started in the 1980s, but it really didn't make it into the mainstream media until the NAFTA agreement came into place in 1994. The mask drew my attention right away. It's like, why are these women in masks? And the words that stood out to me were like Mexico, indigenous women, autonomy, government. So just autonomy, indigenous, and Mexico was a totally new concept to me. And as we know, like in K through 12, that's nothing that's ever really explored or exposed to us. And one of the biggest things that has stood out for me is the Zapatista autonomy. And quoting from them, it's the right and the condition to self-govern and have individual agency and capacity to make informed, rational choices, uncoerced from outside forces, which in many ways spoke to me because that's kind of ideally how I would like to live my own life, to be able to make my own choices and have my self-agency without having these outside ideologies be imposed on the way I decide to live my life. These are some of the demands that have been made by the Zapatistas, and I think a lot of, as we dive into what community cultural development is, reflects a lot of what their demands are. And it's liberty, democracy, justice, independence, communication, education, culture, work, land, roof, health, peace, and bread. I feel like it brings it home and it reflects a lot of social justice issues that I think here at Spark, and I think a lot of us are really drawn to. And to me, what's fascinating is that this resistance plays out visually in so many ways, and I'll elaborate a little bit more. That it wasn't really until this imagery that was highly visual here in the U.S. that really the ideology started to come through. But it was through this imagery of the youth that really literally crossed the border here into the U.S. I decided to go and see like what was going on. There was other literature that I had read coming from out of the Zapatistas community was saying like our movement went out of fashion, and I was curious to know like what was still going on since it wasn't really in the media as much as it used to be, both in Mexico and here in the U.S. We waited 6 hours to be seen and to be approved to go in, and this was a mural that I sat in front of for the most of those hours. And now looking back, just sitting there and not really having anybody to tell me, oh, this is what we're going for. Just the mural itself was saying so much about their struggle as a community and their current resistance, which this was not even 2 years ago, so this was already hitting like almost 20 years that they've been in resistance of the government. One part that I want to explore more in thinking about how a community culture development project could actually happen in one of these communities, I'm really wanting to pull these 5 things that Tara Yoso, who does a lot of work with critical race theory, has called community cultural wealth. She says community cultural wealth is an array of cultural knowledge, skills, abilities, and contacts possessed by socially marginalized groups that often go unrecognized or unacknowledged. So to me, right away, it was like, the Zapatistas and this community cultural wealth like align very well. So these are some of the things that I really want to be able to investigate further, but in lines with the process of making art, whether it is how does their ideology as a community reflect in a mural, because a lot of the murals are collaborated amongst themselves. So I want to know like how that looks in a community that's already labeled to be autonomous and to be has shown this resistance over the years. Like, what is there to be learned in there that can be taken out and us used in here in LA, for example? So this is where I'm kind of stuck as far as like what I would want to do. And in thinking about not only the murals that they have now, but potential murals, I think it would contribute to this shifting of like whatever this deficit view as indigenous communities or marginalized people to have cultural poverty. And this is more interested in the counter stories of individual participants in an art project, such as a mural. So they're looking about into the process of, so to me the process is important, and then the aesthetic outcome, I just put like zines, photography, or mural. And I put photography or zines because also thinking about location and funding and how that could be a barrier, but I'm trying to explore other alternatives of how to go around that.